Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today it is my distinct pleasure to have John Assaraf with us. John is one of the leading high performance success coaches in the world. He's a behavioral neuroscience researcher who has appeared numerous times on Larry King Live, Anderson Cooper, and the Ellen DeGeneres Show. He grew Remax of Indiana from startup to 85 offices and 1,200 sales associates who sold over $4 billion a year. John was also one of the founders of Bamboo.com that went public on NASDAQ with a market cap of $2.5 billion. Today, he's CEO of MyNeuroGym.com, a neuroscience-based company dedicated to helping individuals strengthen their mindset so they achieve their goals and dreams faster and easier than ever before. John's written 4 books, including 2 New York Times bestsellers that have been translated to 35 languages. He's the creator of the innercizing movement and has been featured in 11 movies, including the blockbuster hit The Secret and Quest for Success with Richard Branson and the Dalai Lama. John, it's so great to have you on the show.
It's so great to finally be on with you. I know I had to cancel the last time, so this is great to be with you today.
It's what a pleasure, what an honor. I'm sure we're going to reveal lots of light in this episode. If you could start by sharing something that might have happened in the last maybe say week or two that gave you a new distinction or insight into reality, into creation, the creator, into your purpose, something that's like new and fresh. Because I think what a lot of people take for granted is with somebody of your stature that they've kind of figured it all out. But it's a journey. It's always a journey for everyone, even somebody who's made it as far as you.
Well, it's interesting. I can relate to, something, this morning that I don't know if it's about the creator, but maybe the creative force and intelligence within us. I was actually at the gym earlier this morning with a good friend of mine that I've known since the mid 1990s. And so this morning around 6 o'clock, we were texting back and forth. Hey, you going to the gym? Yeah, I'm going. Okay, I'll see you there in an hour. And so we get to the gym and he says, hey, do you want to just do my routine with me today? And I go, well, I was really looking forward to doing my routine because today's my, chest day and my triceps day. And but then I caught myself, wanting to do the same thing, the same pattern that I'm used to doing. And I said, well, you know what? Yeah, let's do your routine today. And so he was working on core and doing some other types of exercises. And I was going through his routine, noticing how much resistance I was having to doing something different, to doing something new. So the spiritual side of it was the awareness of my thoughts, the awareness of my bodily sensations, and my absolute rationalizations, the rational lies that I was telling myself in my head, and how much I wanted to stay with what was familiar. And lo and behold, I surrendered. I said, let's let Jim, which is his name, lead. And he took me through some of his exercises, and it was difficult at first. And then it became easier. But at the moment, I just, I really realized, we are such creatures of habit, that we develop these habits, these patterns that become comfortable for us. And we don't like to get out of our comfort zone. So that was a really good aha of being open to allowing, something else to enter your consciousness and to go with that flow. And we had a great workout, and I worked on some muscles that I don't normally train in that way. And it just reminded me of just be open to what presents itself and stop resisting so much to do what is familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing this. I think it was maybe from Jaya, the sexologist. She was my first guest on this podcast back in 2015. I think it was her who explained that patterns become grooves in the brain, right? Grooves become ruts, ruts become graves. So mix it up. That was basically the bottom line of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think um, those would be a negative pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also, patterns become, we can say muscles, and the muscles that are exercised, or what I prefer to call is inner size, right? I've got that that thing right there called innercise they become strengthened. And so if you're innercizing the right neuromuscles, then those graves you can actually fill back up with soil and then maybe plant something beautiful above it.
Yeah. So I know
I'm
that
going to
you're,
write that down. I like that.
yeah, yeah. I know that you're well known for many things in personal development space, but one of them in particular is how to generate wealth. And a lot of it has to do with our mind and mindset and our expectations, our view of reality. And I forget who said this, but we don't see the world as it is. We see the world the way we see us. And so I'm curious how that shows up for you and for the people that you're um, inspiring and teaching in the area of wealth.
Sure. I mean, you asked a question a little bit earlier at the beginning, just about spiritual awarenesses, and the first question that I like to always think about is there an abundance of everything,
Mhm.
like right here, right now? Is there an abundance of wealth, abundance of money, abundance of minerals, abundance of food, abundance of innovation? Yeah, there's an abundance. And so the question is if there is an abundance, and if there are some people that believe it and behave in ways that there's an abundance, why is it that some people believe there's scarcity? Or why are they experiencing scarcity when there's so much abundance?
Mhm.
And if we go back to when we were born, were you born with a scarcity or an abundance mindset? Were you born with any beliefs? Were you born with any fears? Were you born with I'm not good enough self-image, or I don't deserve, the success that he or she or they have? Like, were you born with any of those ideas? And the answer is no. So the question then becomes, what is a belief in the brain? What is a self image in the brain? Why do some fears, cause some people to fight it or freeze or run away from it, and other people they run towards it? What are the
Mhm.
mechanics? If it's true that every brain functionally works the same. So if every brain functionally works the same, like every car functionally works the same, there are some people that can drive their cars, like the Indy 500 at 260 miles an hour. And some people are petrified and don't drive well at 70 miles an hour. And is it possible that these are skill sets that we can learn? An abundance mindset is a pattern that we can develop. But the question becomes, how did I become conditioned to believe and to expect certain things, whether it's money or your physique or your relationship or your business or your career? Most people, and it goes back to where we started earlier, that we're conditioned to believe certain things, to expect certain things, to feel certain things, and to do and have certain things. So can I retrain my brain to move from maybe scarcity or security to success and significance? Can we go from I'm afraid of failing to I can turn my fear into my fuel for success?
Mhm.
I'm worried that I might be embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed or judged or rejected if I do this and it doesn't work out or look as good as I'd like it to, because of what he or she or they will think of me or say about me. Is it possible to shift that in our brain? And the answer is, of course, it's possible, because we now know, we've only been doing science for, give or take 500 years, 600 years or so. And in the last 20 years, relatively a short period of time, we're starting to understand that, when you say that I don't see the world as it is, I see the world as I am, or as the patterns of recognition that I've learned or have been conditioned to see the world. We're basically, sitting in a movie theater, projecting onto the screen, all right, what our interpretation is of the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
It's our interpretation of the outside world. So we might be looking at the screen, but we're not seeing the same movie unless we're aligned and in resonance and share, some of the same beliefs, right, or perspectives. And so the question is, can I teach my brain to see more? Because it's not your eyes that see, right? It's our brain that sees. And the very mechanics of how the brain sees is it sees what it's conditioned to see, right? So I have a map of reality of what's possible, specifically what's possible for me. Why? Because I have the history of how many years and months and moments I've been alive, and the experiences and the meanings that I gave things or learned to give things. So is it possible for me to change, what it is that I see? Because if it's true that there's an abundance of how to for health, wealth, relationships, career, if there's an abundance of it, is it possible for me to train my brain to actually see what's already here?
Yeah.
And the answer is, yeah, it is.
Yeah. There's so many things to unpack here. One thing that popped in my mind was I recently saw a YouTube video, forget which neuroscientist it was, or scientist who said it, but it was backed up by hardcore science. And the thing that he said that really stuck with me was the brain and its ability to observe objective reality. The likelihood that it is doing so is 0%, literally 0%.
Yeah, if you think of which video that was, I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna find that one.
Objective reality. It's like I said, our brain allows light in through it. There's a part of our brain called the thalamus. And whether it's light or sound, it's energy in formation. Light, energy in formation. Sound, energy in formation. If we read something off of a page, right, it's going through our eyes, going through this place called the thalamus, and then the thalamus sends it to different parts of our brain for processing. And if there is an awareness and a match in our brain, then our brain pays attention, especially if it's important to us. That's why if you just bought a red car, you tend to see a lot of red cars. If your spouse or a friend, is pregnant, you tend to see more pregnant women because it rises up to the level of importance for us. So
the reticular activating system is tuned in to that.
The cells, the reticular cells specifically, right? So the way that we see the world is based on what's important to us and what's familiar to us. And there's 400 billion bits of information per second coming into our consciousness. We delete or distort 99.999% of that on a second by second basis. So that means I'm not seeing everything there is to see. I see what I have trained my brain to see or what I expect to see. Yeah. And so when we're getting into, when I work with clients, everything that I do starts off with a vision of what you would like your life to be like sometime in the future, whether it's your financial, your business, your health, your relationships, your career, your fun, your experiences, your contributions, etc. What would it be like if you could wave a magic wand? And why do I do that? I said, well, is it true? If we start off with, is this true? And I'll ask you, is it true that if you want to, let's say, lose 20 pounds of fat and keep it off and be 50% or 25% healthier than you are right now, is it true that how to do that is readily available?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Is it true that if you wanted to make 5 times more money right now, the how to somebody knows how you can do that.
Yes.
Is it true that if you want to start a business from scratch and grow it to $1 million, how to exist? Is it true that if you want to write a book, even though you've never written a word, how to get it done, either by yourself or through a ghostwriter, the how to exist? If you want to have a better relationship with your significant other, is it true that there's somebody who knows how to? Is it true that if you want to travel the world with low budget or no budget, you could figure it out? And the answer is yes to everything for health, wealth, relationships, career, business, etc. So that means that it's possible for you, but there may be some obstacles that when we release those obstacles, you can achieve the vision that you actually have. So if we set the vision, set some goals on our way to that vision, created some strategies of how am I going to do it? How am I going to achieve that goal? And then we ask, well, what body of knowledge do I need? What skills do I need to upgrade or borrow from somebody else that they can help me achieve this? And then what tools and resources may exist right now to help me achieve that? Which means that the achievement of goals is based on one thing and one thing alone initially. And that is, are you committed to achieving that goal? Because if you're not committed, by default, it means you're just interested. And if you're interested, you're going to do what's easy and convenient or familiar. But if you're committed, you will do whatever it takes, ethically and professionally. You will do whatever it takes because the how to already exists. So if the how to exists, that means we live in an abundant universe, an abundant world where everything we need is right here, right now. And unless you are trying to colonize Mars, you really don't need to be that innovative for most goals.
Yeah. But if everything under the sun has already existed and been created, right? From Ecclesiastes.
No, that's not what the creative force says.
Okay.
Right? We haven't come up with cures for a lot of cancers, but somebody will because that's what they're focusing on. We didn't know how to put humans on the moon back in '68, and we developed the technologies and the methodologies after we made the decision. When John F. Kennedy says, I want to put a human on the moon, a man on the moon, and bring them back safely to Earth, we did not know how to do that at the time. Right? When we run short of resources, okay, let's say it's agricultural resources, and we say we're killing all the earth, we learned how to create more per acre than we ever knew how to do because we were forced to innovate. When we run out of, or shouldn't be, in my opinion, using fossil fuels because we're killing our ozone layer, we're now looking at alternative technology and really looking to, for example, harness the power of the sun that's been here since the beginning of time, right? To be able to maybe create an energy source or even use alternative energy that's in air right now, right? So the ability to think, the ability to connect with possible options for us to achieve goals is greater than we ever thought possible. And part of the reason is we're starting to realize we each have a brain with at least $100 billion. The greatest biocomputer.
And yet we're not just pulling this stuff out of our own consciousness. We're accessing what some people refer to as the unified field or the collective unconscious and so forth. We're a kind of a receiver, a radio antenna. And even I think there's a quote from Nikola Tesla about this, that we're essentially a radio antenna. And so if you kind of extrapolate that out to like the analogy of even a dumb terminal connecting up to a supercomputer, then where do you get your insights and your areas of focus and the different epiphanies and so forth? What's your thought on where this comes from and how to tap into it and amplify the receiving of this information and not just like, sit back on the couch and think, law of attraction, money's coming to me, and then binge watch Netflix all day.
That's baloney, bullshit, and airy-fairy metaphysical nonsense. Let's have a little bit of fun. I'm gonna get a prop. So hold on. I'm gonna get a little prop, but before I get the prop out, we'll have a little bit of fun. Is there music here right now?
In this room, no. Well,
you want to bet?
Okay, is this a trick question? It must be.
Yes. Well, it's a question that's going to challenge you and everybody else to think beyond the obvious.
Okay. Is there? Yes, there's music.
Is there music in here right now?
Yeah.
I don't hear any through my ears though.
Yeah, but when you asked me that, it's like, don't think of a pink elephant. It's like, okay, now I've got a pink elephant.
So let's go to higher cortical thinking, which I know you love. So first and foremost, is it a fact that everything is made up of energy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So my body made up of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, sodium, phosphorus, the 6 core elements of this sentient being called a human, coalesced, right, in this sequence. How that was created, we'll leave for another discussion. But I am a molecular structure, atomic structure that's vibrating and oscillating in this quantum field that I am in. I am part of the quantum field, like a fish is part of water, and the water is part of the tank, and the tank is part of the air or the room that the tank is in. It may be in a different state of vibrational frequency, but everything is made up of energy. So let's understand a little bit, and I love that you quoted Tesla because I love his works. If you want to understand the creative force of the universe, understand energy. And that's how he came up with some of his ideas that came through him. Mm-hmm. But if you think about this, if I brought a radio right here, right now that you could see, no wires, but there's a battery, and I turned the radio on, and I said to you, Stephan, what music do you want to hear? And you said, John, rock and roll, baby. And I said, hold on a second, that's 95.6. And I tuned in to 95.6 with the tuner, right, and a receiver that's in the radio. I could tune into rock and roll music right now, and you and I and everybody else could hear it right now, right? Mm-hmm. What if you said, John, I don't want rock and roll. Skip that. That's like old time music. I want some beautiful jazz. Oh, that's 98.5. I turned to 98.5 and boom, the rock and roll is gone. We moved off of that station and we tuned in to another frequency that's in this room right now. And if I didn't want classical and I wanted jazz, and I didn't want jazz and I wanted punk rock, and I didn't want punk rock, I wanted a music comedy station, I could use this little receiver and tuner, okay, to receive a message that I tune into. So let's talk about this. What do you think this is?
Okay, for those who are listening without video, you got to narrate a little bit.
I'm showing a brain right now. I'm showing a plastic brain, and I'm holding in both of my hands cupped together like a little melon in my hands. And I've got a brain, like billions of years of evolution, right, has created this body, these 11 systems that make this body hopefully work together synergistically, all controlled by a brain and a nervous system attached to the brain. And, you know, if you took my hair away and my skin away and removed my skull, all you would see is this human brain that is allowing light in through the eyes, which are a part of the brain, allowing sound in through the ears, right, for processing. Now, if our brain is able to see through our eyes and hear through our ears and feel through our tactile senses and through our olfactory sense, our nose, is it possible that I can use my brain to receive or to send out information? Mm-hmm. Have you ever walked into a room and not a word has been said and you know something is wrong?
Yeah, of course.
Or you've got on a phone with a friend or a family member and you know something's wrong, like as soon as they say hi?
Or
How do you know?
my pet knows I'm going to take it to the vet before I even do
That's right.
anything different.
That's right. And specifically with pets, there's some research that was done by Rupert Sheldrake that pets actually know when their owners leave, let's say their place of business, when many people worked at an office. They actually start anticipating their owners coming home. So there's been a lot of work, around entanglement and what Albert Einstein called spooky action at a distance. And so when we're talking about this ability to tap into the field that I'm in and tap into different frequencies, when somebody is in a meditative state, okay, where they move conscious states, let's say from a beta brainwave frequency, which most of us are in right now as I am speaking and you're listening, or vice versa, and we move into an alpha, a delta, a theta, or even a gamma brainwave frequency, we are able to tune into different frequencies, energy fields that are already here right now. So if we are driving a stick shift car and we're always in first gear, and we are first gear in a stick shift car, we put our pedal to the metal, we're going to burn out the engine. But what happens when we pop the clutch, move into second gear? The engine's actually working less and the car's going faster. Pop the clutch again, move into third gear. Holy shit, the car's going faster, but the engine's working less hard. Now we say, well, I want to go faster. Great. Pop it to fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear. Sixth gear, you're going on at 150 miles an hour. You don't need the torque to get started. You want to be cruising. So what if I shared with you that we can use our electromagnetic switching station called our brain to tune in and to focus on different layers of consciousness? What if we could activate different networks in our brain better than we do right now, since we usually are dominant with either, the salience, which is the interactive network between the executive and the default mode network, the imagination network, and the executive decision-making part of our brain. Mm-hmm. So what if I shared with you that not only can you get the networks working better, you can control more of the circuits that determine what you tune into or tune out of that's already here right now. Now we're talking about some deeper levels of awareness. And if it's true that, Einstein, which I have over there, used a lot of his imagination and his executive functioning part of your brain to think of different scenarios, and invested many, many hours tuning into possibilities. And then from the possibilities, looked at probabilities. Is it possible that each one of us can let go for a brief moment in time, maybe the station or stations we're tuning into, and locked and loaded naturally, because we like comfort zones, we like sameness, we like to repeat patterns because it's easy and conserves energy. But is it possible for us to tune into a whole other set of frequency? Is it possible for us to activate our imagination center? And part of it may be the ideas we have as a result of being alive for 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. But can we tap into the image nation, the imagination where every idea comes from anyway, is the field of all possibilities? Is it possible for us to practice that and get better at it? Well, not only is it possible, but that's what a lot of people do. And meditation may be one of the ways to, tap in. Psychedelics, can be another way. Different medicines, different psychedelics, to be able to tap into fields of possibilities. There are so many people, whether it was Edison sitting, in a chair holding a couple of balls in his hand. So he would get into this hypnagogic state and almost at this sleep-like state. And he dropped the balls, which would wake him up, and he'd write down the ideas right there. And he had a whole slew of ideas that were just percolating when he wasn't thinking about all these ideas. Right? So Tesla, same thing. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, right? The Beatles came up with that song while they were on psychedelics. It is purported. So there's a lot of things that we are discovering now because we can actually do a better job studying the human brain, this electromagnetic switching station that tunes in or tunes out or gets locked into these ideas, beliefs, convictions, politics, whether vaccinations, we lock and load, and then we defend those positions, and sometimes, with our lives, because we don't know how to hold opposing thoughts at the same time and observe instead of react automatically based on, what we believe is true. Yeah. What if what we believe is absolutely not true? So I know I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but as soon as we get into consciousness and the spiritual side of our being, the spiritual side of our being is the most intelligent side of all. So how do we tap into that using the tools that we've been given, as a human?
So when you were talking about we dig into our positions and tend to defend them instead of hold opposing views or be willing to hold them, I call it the willing suspension of disbelief, to be able to be open enough to try new things and hold different perspectives and so forth. But the phrase that came to mind, or
the willing suspension of belief, right? So it's the willing suspension of belief or disbelief.
Yeah. So just being open, I guess, is getting into that space of, ideally, I'd say, getting into the space of being nobody and no thing, no time, like Dr. Joe Dispenza described. But the phrase that came to my mind was sunk costs. Right? So you put all this money in, you don't want to lose it, and it continues to throw good money after bad because you're bummed out about the sunk costs, and you can't disconnect from that emotion of loss and grief over that loss, and so you can continue to dig in even deeper down that hole. So
there's another reason for that, though.
Yeah.
And there's another reason for that. And the reason I have this Frankenstein's monster over my left shoulder and the Einstein image over my right is there's a part of our brain that likes to focus on the positive cognitive biases that we have, the reason why things can be better. And hopeful and that we're going to succeed. But there's another part of our brain that is geared towards what we call as disappointment avoidance, right? So we avoid being disappointed or avoid disappointing others because of what we feel it may do to ourselves, our self-image, or the relationship. So we avoid disappointment. And in avoiding disappointment, we prolong, in many cases, the inevitable disappointment. And so we stick our head in the sand. And listen, there's a lot of research around cognitive biases, whether it's positivity bias, negativity bias, confirmation bias, etc. And that's our brain's way of just conserving energy, but moving away from any pain or discomfort and keeping us safe and secure in our comfort zone, even though we may be in the most dangerous spot in our lives in that comfort zone. We may be that proverbial frog, in the water that's warming up gently and then boiling. The frog can't jump out because it's too late, which is apparently not a true story, but it's a good visual.
Yeah, it sounds good though.
For us to look back at. Yeah. So the real question is, if every brain, I'm going to come back to, if every brain functionally works the same, then me learning about how my brain works so that I could use it better, maybe than the average, is an advantage. It's an edge, right? It's an edge. And so if it's hard to entertain two things at once, the question is, why? Why can't I play this part without having any emotional attachment to it? And the answer to why I can't is just because you haven't trained yourself to. It's not that you can't, you just don't have the skill yet. And are you prepared to learn the skill so that you can actually be smarter and have more options and more choices than being locked and loaded to your position? Right? Can you take a superposition position? And now we're getting into the world of some quantum mechanics and superposition, where you can be in more than one place at the same time. But that's for another discussion.
Yeah. Now, if speaking of being in two places at once, how about just holding two perspectives at once?
Sure.
You said earlier in this conversation that we're watching a movie, and that same movie is not being watched by others unless we're in the collective unconscious. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but that it's each of us is watching a different movie essentially, right? So we're getting different views.
Because as I'm watching a movie, I'm the one giving it meaning. You may not be giving it the same meaning. While I'm watching the right corner of the movie, top right corner, you might be watching the bottom left corner. While I'm watching a guy or a girl riding a bicycle, I may be watching their feet. You might be watching the cigarette in their mouth. That's, you're seeing the smoke, and it's caused an imagination of the smoke that looks just like the cloud that you saw just before you came in the movie theater. And while you're doing that, there's another person that actually notices the beautiful, cute dog, okay, and the bird in the back in the cage. So we may be seeing the general movie screen at the same time, but the experience is different based on where our attention goes. Now, listen, if I say to you, hey, I want you to just pay attention to this pen, even while I hold a pen right here, right now. All right, you may be looking at the tip. Somebody may be looking at my finger. Somebody may be looking at how scratched this is. But generally, there's a pen. Generally, there's a movie, right? So we agree that there's a pen and there's a movie, but somebody says, yeah, but the pen is being held by your hand, so that's got to be included in the scene. Well, does it? How long can you focus just on the tip without losing your focus, right? So when we're talking about the nature of reality, right? Reality exists, in the confines for most people of their own mind. And in this box, even as I'm standing here, you're seeing me, okay, in a little box inside your head, in your skull that has zero light in it. Right? So I'm not even out here. I'm in your skull. Okay. I am electrical activity, okay, in your skull that's creating, okay, this image of me inside your dark skull. Like, whoa. So what is reality? Reality is in essence what we make it. And so if we tie that back into is the success I'm achieving or not achieving, or the health that I'm achieving or not achieving, the experience that I'm having, more in my and I don't want to say control, but more in my ability to mold and shape it and be a participant, with a little bit more directive abilities. Yeah, absolutely. Now, listen. We also know that there's randomness in the universe. So as much as we want to think that everything happens by law, not by luck, that's not true. There is randomness in the universe, and shit does happen. So shit does happen. And so as much as I say, here's the plans and the goals and the dreams that I want, sometimes shit happens. And that's the part that you have to surrender, allow, and just go with that flow.
So do you tap into like the collective unconscious, or the creator, or angels, or guides, kind of the unseen spiritual support team to get information and guidance and so forth? Are you receiving what you believe to be, for example, information from loved ones who have passed, and just channeling that kind of information? Or is it just you're tapping into your own subconscious and the creative power that is within you? Or is it both?
Yeah, it's both. So in my Exceptional Life Blueprint, I have Einstein is one of my favorite characters, but you'll see Nikola Tesla, you'll see Newton, you'll see Stephen Hawking's, all as a reminder to me that the intelligence, not just of them, but obviously of Hitler and Genghis Khan and any creator or destroyer, that's ever lived on this planet, or maybe in this universe or multiverse, if you believe in the multiverse theory as well. All of that energy is available to all of us. So I'm going to go back to, can I tune into and or can I allow to myself to receive energy that's in a formation that shows up in the form of an idea, right? There is, like I said, a receiver and a transponder. And so can I open up my mind to receive? Can I focus my mind, okay, to see and maybe to send out? The answer is yes. So I meditate every day, sometimes twice a day. Every morning when I wake up, meditation is a state of consciousness that's different from an awake state or a sleep state. It is its own state of consciousness. And so meditation is my way of doing that. I have explored with psychedelics and medicines for 20 years. And it's another way that I have tapped into the field of wisdom, knowledge, whether it's guides from this quantum field that's not in physical form. It's just like, I look at it as ice is the word we use for H2O in its solid state. Water is the word we use for H2O in its liquid state. Steam is the term we use for H2O in a different state of vibration. Air, ether, or gas is another term we use, okay, for the exact same thing being in a different vibrational state. Would you agree with that? So I can transcend my physical state by changing the vibrational state that my brain can control. So if I want to get into a gamma brainwave frequency or state, or dominant state, because we're never in only one brainwave frequency, or delta or subdelta or theta or alpha or beta, or beyond gamma, which is the cosmic brain or cosmic frequency, there are physical things that I could do, and then there are enhancers that I can use. So, for example, we use microscopes to look deep, 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 deep into the nature of something, right? Into the atomic scale. We can use electron microscopes. We now have the James Webb Telescope looking to like 300 billion years after the beginning of this universe, right? So we're using technologies, all right, to see deeper in and further out. Well, that means that there's millions and millions and millions of layers of frequencies. So the question for me has been for many, many years, how do I, and I'm going to put this in quotes, how do I see more, right? How do I become more aware of the different layers that are already here? So I can practice mindfulness. I can practice different types of meditation. I can practice, whether it's prayer or sound or whatever it is, to resonate with different frequencies that are already here. I could use medicines if that's what I choose, all right, to like really like leave this physical body or set this physical body aside, to experience other layers of consciousness. And to everybody, they do what's right for them and what they feel comfortable doing and safe doing. And I always preface, whatever you do, be safe, and make sure that you have guidance and people that are experts that guide you. You wouldn't go out on a journey into big waves in the ocean without having a captain that's seasoned in big wave surfing or big wave riding or big wave navigating. You wouldn't go to the moon without having astronauts with you who know what to do. So this possibility of exploration of self, an exploration of consciousness, an exploration of information, an exploration of abundance or scarcity. They both are here. What are you tuning into? Right? Like, what are you tuning into? But wouldn't it also at the same time be worthwhile of you asking yourself, like, what am I here to experience? What am I here on this beautiful blue planet to do, to be, to have, to give, to explore? Like what's the purpose of this journey that's short? Like, we're here, what, 100 years? If we're lucky, 100 years, 100 years if we're lucky. That's maybe it's a lot of time. And so like, what do I want to trade my life for? Like, what kind of an experience do I want to have? Is it possible that the choices that I make have consequences? And by the same token, the choices I don't make have consequences? And is it possible that, the human species, and sometimes I question this, is one of the most intelligent species on planet Earth? Choice is one of the gifts we have. And in order to really empower ourselves, what if I needed to ask better questions?
Yeah.
Right? What if I can achieve more, have more, be more happy, be more purposeful, have more meaning in my life, feel like, what a phenomenal gift I have called life. I woke up this morning. Holy shit, yes. Like, let's start with you woke up. A bunch of people didn't. Right? What if in that state of gratitude, I actually just activated, one of the key networks in my brain, all right, that causes me to feel good and causes me to be motivated. It's called the reward center of the brain, the nucleus accumbens and insula part of the brain. When I am in a state of gratitude for what I have, what I've experienced, the good, the challenging, I'm actually activating my motivational center of my brain because I want more of that. Right? My motivational center is my motive for action center of my brain. So there's a lot of just wonderful things that we can learn and do. And part of the, what we have to do is be open. Like, be open to being wrong. Be open to being right. Be open to holding two opposing ideas and beliefs. Now ask yourself, how does he believe that? Not why does he believe that or why does she, how does he believe that? What experience does she have when she believes that? Like, what has happened? What has she read? What has she, like, where are her references to believe that at the level of conviction? Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah. I believe that you can actually, just by your observing and your believing, change some of the starting variables of your universe, of your experience of reality that is your shard or slice of the multiverse. And like, for example, you'll hear opposing positions or views on, let's say, how many guardian angels you get. It's like, okay, well, this person says 1 and this person says 2, and I think both are very credible. They're both very psychic and trustworthy and so forth. Which one is true? I think your decision on which one is true actually influences the uh, the starting variables that become true in that reality for you.
Yeah, including the belief that might say, well, because I have only one, I'm luckier. And the other person says, well, you only have one, I have two, I'm luckier.
Mm-hmm.
Your belief makes it true.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm curious.
Not that it's true. It's true for you. And this is where we create our own realities.
Yeah, but if it's true
So
for
here's
me,
another question,
if
right?
it's true for me, it could be true for the entire universe. Like, for example, I could believe that I live in a friendly universe and the universe is friendlier, not just to me, but if I had taken an opposing view that the universe is dystopian, or, it's like it's a dark universe where
Sure.
evil is allowed to thrive, then World War III happens, and like all this terrible stuff happens in one universe, one slice of the multiverse, and the other one it doesn't, because I'm the observer. I'm the pilot of uh, my reality, not just the local, but the global reality
Sure.
for that
Yeah.
universe. So I'm curious what your position is on that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talk, research, discussions on parallel universes or multi universes. That the Big Bang wasn't the Big Bang. Actually, I was just at a lecture with Dr. Brian or Professor Brian Fox just last week here in San Diego, talking about cosmology and multiverses and parallel universes. And so those possibilities are there.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that would tell you right now World War III has already started. There are people right now, that are in the middle of a war while we may be sitting here on the beach in San Diego, you know, taking on a fun summer
Yeah.
day. So for some people, World War III has already started, and they're living, experiencing, feeling that. Now, listen, there's some truth to that for their experience because of where their physical location is. Um, Even when there is a war, okay, let's say a World War One, World War Two, are there people who thrive because of the war?
Sure.
Yeah. So now we say, okay, so for some people, the war, okay, or a war is actually a time where they thrive the most. And they actually welcome it because they're doing great. So I mean, listen, it's a complex topic, of
Mm.
course, and we can talk about freedom versus oppression, and we can talk about choice and the meaning we give anything, and dark and evil, and the law of polarity um, states that for every up there's a down, for every good there's a bad, for every inside there's an outside, and you can't have one without the other. Right. So as good as things may be for me right now, it may be equally bad for somebody else. And so that duality always has existed and always will exist. And it exists in varying degrees at varying times. But the truth is, it's happening all the time. That duality exists all
Yeah.
the time. And I can collapse the wave of possibility into probability based on my focus and my choice and observation, right? If everything at the wave function works as both a wave or a particle, and my observation and choice determines what is collapsed and what is observed, then the observer, well, it's called the observer effect, as you know, the observer effect has meaning.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Is it possible for me to get a little bit better at remembering, being aware of the duality that exists at all times, and then to focus on what it is that I want? That's good for me, good for you, good for us, good for humanity, if that's what I care about. I think the answer is yes. I think, when more of us focus on, the good that we want, then we don't have to so-called fight what we don't want. We can collapse the waves of possibilities. And John, what's John's? Oh, he's a quantum physicist. John Hagelin, has mathematically shown. He was in the movie What the Bleep with Joe Dispenza that you talked about. They have mathematically shown, that when I think it's 10,000 people meditate at the same time, they affect the energy field of the entire world in a positive way. Right. So there's the physical world, there's the emotional world, there's the mental world, but then there is the spiritual world. And this, to me, that spiritual world is the world that we cannot see, with our eyes or hear with our ears. I believe we can feel it through our intuition. I think we can experience it through our higher cortical function abilities, and through, let's say meditation and or other ways to tap into, different levels of consciousness and different levels of intelligence.
I think it also,
But
it's
in
reliant
order
on
for us,
also the desire, the intention, and the request. Like you can get visions or prophetic dreams or other types of stimuli coming into your senses from that unseen world. But it's less likely to
of
happen
course,
if you're not requesting it or believing it to be true.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. Well, we can block out stuff just as much as we can allow stuff in. Right. So I'll give you a perfect example. Have you ever read a book and you get lost in the book and maybe somebody is talking to you and you don't even hear them and they're like 2 feet away from you, or you're watching TV and you're watching, whether it's a Netflix movie or a music show or some a sporting event, and your partner or friend is screaming for you and you don't hear them. You go, "Don't you hear me?" And you go, "No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I've tuned you out." But that's exactly where that tune in, tune out, phrase comes from. Is what are you tuning in? What are you tuning out? And are you being deliberate?
And you can practice these techniques that allow you to bring more of the good stuff in and block more of the bad stuff, and to manifest a better reality for yourself doing these innercizes that you've come up with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I'd also, if we were talking about, let's say, energy isn't good or bad. Energy just is. Right. And so, you anyway.
I know we got to wrap up because
we'll have to
you've
save
got,
yeah, we'll have to save that. I can go down that rabbit hole deeply into, some of the laws of nature, which are pretty interesting.
Well, we could keep talking for more hours, I'm sure. You're a fascinating guy and full of wisdom, but we do have to wrap. So if our listener or viewer is interested in learning more from you, maybe even working with you, doing some of those innercizes you've created, strengthening their mindset with myneurogym.com, what's the next step for them?
Yeah, listen, go to myneurogym.com. That's my company. You can always go to johnassaraf.com and take a look at, I've got a bunch of videos for free, articles they could read. I focus a lot on the neuroscience and neuropsychology of success. So if you want to understand a little bit deeper level of, why visualization work, or why you should meditate, or cognitive biases, or neurotechnology to enhance, some of the experience, just go to johnassaraf.com, read the blogs. They're free. We have a lot of free events. We have programs that people could look into when they're ready.
Awesome.
So, and I'm all over social media on Instagram and Facebook, etc.
All right. Awesome. We'll include all that in the show notes for this episode. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate you. You're a real light in the world.
Thanks, my friend. So are you. Appreciate you. You have a great day.